Greetings, gamers. My name is the Mega Matt Cat. I am the solo gamer, and I am doing a video about the year in review. Specifically, I'm going to be talking about the year in games, the year in the media, the year in the industry, and the year in controversy. Yeah, strap on your flame shields, people. This is going to get ugly. All joking aside, I think this was a good year for gaming. Some of the best games I've played came out this year. There's been an interesting set of movements among different groups, and I think we're finally starting to see a turning of the page in certain areas. We'll get to all that in time, but we're going to deal with those 4 topics I mentioned earlier, one by one, and then we'll go forward from there. So, starting off, gaming in the year 2015. This year in games. First, let's talk the big boys. No one was bigger this year, in my opinion, than From Software and Bethesda. From Software early on released the immensely popular and impressively done Bloodborne. And at the end of the year, we got its first and, from what I understand, only expansion in the Old Hunters. This was a game that took the Dark Souls style of gameplay and made it not only more entertaining, more energetic, more high-paced and intense, but it also made it more accessible in a weird way. It was still harder than balls, don't get me wrong, but what really made it stand out was the fact that the hard difficulty didn't feel as imbalanced as it always had with the Dark Souls series. Then there's also Fallout 4. Who the hell saw that coming? We all heard the rumors. We all knew that Fallout 4 was being made. Then we find out at E3 it's coming out in November. Are you kidding me? Among other things, this was the year of Star Wars Battlefront, the continuation of Killer Instinct. You saw not quite as much big-name games, but what we did get were really good. We also saw a strange shift in events. We had games like Arkham Knight, which were super hyped, which wound up being completely overshadowed by controversy, in their case, the PC port being absolute crap. Then we see other companies who had for years never done PC ports suddenly jumping in on the bandwagon. Some ports good, some ports bad. Overall, we're seeing a bit of a split in the industry. And what it really boils down to is this. The industry is, at the moment, more or less running into a problem where it's not actively, considering itself as one universal group. Instead, it's breaking itself off into factions. Some developers prefer to go console only. Others prefer to go with a multi-platform perspective. And then still others are preferring to work the margins and go cell phone and mobile and all this other crap. We will get to that in the industry portion of this, but it's worth noting that of all the areas where gaming is seeing growth right now, the biggest is the indie scene. There's been a ton of great little indie games that popped out this year. On the top of my list was a game called Sub-Level Zero, which is a roguelite using the Descent style gameplay that I loved as a kid. Another one is Undertale, which may be the best RPG of the year, but it really wasn't my style. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's absolutely fabulous. And I think that it's one of the most unique pieces of work I've ever seen, but it's not the type of game I get behind, really. I get behind the retro aesthetic when I think it's well done, and if there's one thing about Undertale I wasn't quite big on, it was that I felt the retro aesthetic it used was a little bit too retro. Just saying. Still, no one can deny, nor should anyone ever deny, that that game is something special. Now, moving on. As far as the industry is concerned, we have to keep in mind that the reason we're seeing such a vast split in the gaming industry right now is that we're seeing a problem in which the gaming industry does not treat us as respected consumers or allies. They treat us almost as enemies at times. You have to keep in mind the industry is not a friend in this equation. They are a business. We'll get into that in more detail later, but we have to keep in mind that these people are out to make money. And the thing is, the reason they're doing a lot of the bad, stupid things they're doing is precisely because they somehow think it will make them money. We have to show them they're wrong, but we'll get to that later. Now, we have to support game companies who show respect and understanding to their customers, i.e., Bethesda, indie gamers. Groups like From Software should always get respect from us because they give us products that are worthy of the money we spend, and then some. Don't get me wrong, I'm not going to say that it's, bad that EA and Activision and Blizzard are producing the games they produce, but it's their other actions, their online pass, their DLC, their unmitigated pre-order garbage that is really hurting the industry right now, and we need to act against it. We also need to act against, well, not act against, but we also need to accept that this is something separate from the presence of mobile gaming. We cannot treat mobile gaming as if it's some sort of monster, yet at the same time we have to acknowledge that mobile gaming is not going to do anything for the big league gaming. It just isn't not going to happen right now. And that's reality. The mobile market is geared towards a completely different type of player. I know this very well because I have a sister who is hopelessly addicted to online games. Well, that's being unfair, but she loves herself some mobile gaming. And it's great. It's something we've bonded over. But at the same time, the games she plays are miles apart from the games I understand. And you know what? I'm okay with that. But that's the point. We have to accept that the industry is branching out and separating off. We cannot act as if it's one industry anymore. We have to start supporting those who support our interests and holding to account those who are against our interests. I'll get into more detail later. But for now, this year in gaming saw hits and misses on all sides, from the blissfully beautiful Bloodborne and the amazing Fallout 4, to the disappointing game of Battlefront, to the lackluster campaign work of Black Ops 3. At the end of the day, that's an industry trend I will discuss later. But we need to start looking at the industry and asking, should it be one thing anymore? Should gaming be a singular entity, or should it break up into smaller groups to deal with different markets? We'll get to that. But until we actually look at gaming objectively, we're going to see years like this where we have great games, and then we have games that just aren't up to the standards they should be. And that's sad, but that's truth. I'm not going to go over like a year in review type of deal, because that's not what I do. I'm not going to give you a top 10 games of 2015. I'm just giving you my honest opinion. Now, that being said, time to move on. Gaming and the media. When I first thought about doing this video, I was actually kind of skeptical about even talking about this subject. But as the year went on and I began to review more data, I realized that someone needs to broach this. Someone needs to look at this and say, you know what, this is not okay anymore. First, let's talk about media bias. In gaming journalism and in journalism as a whole, media has become so biased that it's beginning to commit seppuku, if you want to be technical. It's starting to destroy itself because of its own biases. No clearer is this than in game journalism, where a year ago, and those of you familiar with Gamergate will know, that the gaming industry saw its own journalism, branches turn against its fan base. The result? Many of those same publications are now struggling just to keep above water, while many niche gamer groups have started to explode in popularity as a result. And I mean, that's not saying that, those other websites are going away anytime soon. But any website pretty much associated with Gawker right now is dying because of how unethical they are, because of the way they treated their fan bases, because of the fact that they're slowly destroying themselves with unethical, biased journalism. And at the end of the day, someone really needs to take a objective look and say, you know what? These are not the media for us anymore. And many gamers are. It's why you've seen the explosion in smaller niche media. Now, in regards to the mainstream media, Fox News, MSNBC, ABC, yada, 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 they are withering. They are dying. This is a slow process. And Fox News is the most resilient because it's tapped into a particular mindset and people who are completely unserved by other media, which is why they're surviving where the others are failing. Now, that's only a temporary thing, but it speaks to a larger problem in the media. The media has become so partisan, so divided, that they are slowly dying out as younger generations go to the net for their news. The same is true of video games. When was the last time you saw a game magazine doing well? Probably not in a long time, right? Most gamers get their news from the same place they get their games, online. They get them from the YouTube. They get them from niche gamer sites. They get them from other game media. I mean, hell, YouTube saw one of the biggest explosions in gaming reportage that has ever been experienced. And these people respect gaming, which is why they're popular. Here's the deal. This is a struggle for recognition. Gaming is wildly recognized for what is amongst its own fan base, amongst gamers, amongst casual players. Everybody agrees that, gaming deserves to be here and that it is, the next big medium. But among the media, it's often either dismissed or viewed with outright contempt. You need only look at a SVU episode that dealt with the Gamergate controversy to realize how out of touch these people are. Now, the real question boils down to this. What can gamers do to address this concern? The answer is simple. We have to support smaller gaming websites. We have to go to places like Kotaku in Action and research the real histories of censorship, consumer movements, media bias, and so forth. While I was initially very skeptical about Kotaku in Action when I first heard of the place, my own research into it reveals that it's a little bit of a mishmash. But at the same time, these people actually really take this shit seriously. And they try very hard to cite and document as much information as they can about these events. So that's important. But the biggest thing we can do is turn our backs on the old guard. Kotaku, Polygon, Gawker. Most gamers are pretty much moving from that anyway, but we have to also do this to the bigger media. We have to turn our backs on other stuff like Fox, MSNBC, ABC. More to a point, we specifically have to stop getting news from any of these sites as far as gaming is concerned. You can get your news for other subjects anywhere you damn well please. I don't care. But when it comes to gaming, we have to stop relying on Kotaku, Polygon, and other garbage sites like them and start going to sites that actually understand and respect gaming. Which, let's face it, Kotaku and company, they don't. That's one of the key things we can do. The other media thing we need to do is support YouTubers who support gaming. Markiplier, Jacksepticeye, guys like that. We also need to strike back against gamers, supposed gamers, who either belittle gaming or work against its best interests. Movie Bob, is a great example. Jim Sterling. I used to love Jim Sterling. And yet at the same time, he's taken positions that have proven demonstrably false over the years, and yet he refuses to either accept that he was wrong or accept that he was a part of the problem. And while I admired his persona, his egomania was very entertaining, the fact that it seems to be part of his real life is horrifying. It's time for gamers to say to these people, you are wrong and you are hurting us. You are hurting gaming. You are hurting the industry. You are siding with its worst enemies because of some broken or incorrect ideological issue. And don't get me wrong. I understand a person might hold an opinion, but if you're defending some of the people that these people defend, like John McIntosh and Aeneas Sarkeesian, you're on the wrong side of this, whether you realize it or not. At the end of the day, gamers are the ones who have to take responsibility for holding these people to account. We are the gamers who came out of the underground, as it were. We were the ones who were the outcasts, the ignored, the trampled on, the tormented. Gaming was something we loved because it gave us a way to be something other than the abused, punching bags we were. Now we're the adults. Now we have the authority. Now we have the money. Now we have the power. Let's start using it and holding these scum to account for their mistakes. Not just Bob and Jim. It was like, I hate to be so harsh on them, but it's time they got called out for it. But I mean the media. I mean everybody. Gamers need to stand for gaming. And we need to get others to join us on this. If we aren't willing to stand for something we've spent so much of our lives on, we're doing it a disservice. There's a reason why movies and music have such devoted fan bases and have such, significant influence in the world. It's because those fan bases fought for them. We need to do the same. Now, that being said, gaming in the media is a subject that's always going to be coming up in discussion, so we'll get back to that. I'm sure I'll do another video about it in a couple of months or something, who knows. Let's move on to the next topic, games and the industry, as well as gamers and the industry. As I said above, the industry is not gaming's friend and is not our friend. And we need to start holding to account game companies who act against gaming's best interests. For example, we should all be in agreement that censorship is flat out unacceptable, no matter who does it or for what reason. If you are not willing to stand by your original content and are going to censor it to move it to another country, you're doing yourself a disservice, but you're doing your players a disservice. And for example, let's look at Capcom. Their censorship of their character designs to try and appeal to the SJWs is a clear example of how this has gotten so pernicious. These characters have always existed. They've always been what they are. Why would you change them now unless outside influence was the reason? And admittedly, the producer of Street Fighter V admitted straight out in an interview that yes, that is exactly why he did it. And you can find that information on Google, no problem. I promise you that. Now, there's also other cases. The DOA 3 thing, the Extreme Paradise issue. PlayAsia is making a killing on this because, Koei Tecmo, or whatever you want to call them, wound up, crippling themselves by being unwilling to release it in America. And now it's too late because PlayAsia is going to get all the money from it, and they won't be able to get in on it directly. They're gonna have all their shit going through an intermediary. They could have made money directly in the country, and instead, they're going to wind up watching all that possible cash flow through PlayAsia's bank. Congratulations, Koei. You crippled yourself on that one. Good job. And that's just an example. Bravely Default, the riot over the character Quiet in Metal Gear 5. It goes on and on and on. And this is probably the biggest issue we're dealing with right now, in the fact that gaming as it is has reached what could only be described as its moment, where it decides where it stands, freedom of speech or censorship. And I will always stand for freedom of speech. Now, where you stand is up to you, but believe me, if you're willing to stand for censorship, that's what they'll give you, and it won't stop here. We've seen it already across the country at college campuses, how free speech is being fought by ill-informed, stupid kids. And the time has come for everybody to rise up and say, no, this is not what is right, this is not who we are. If you're offended, that's your problem. Anyway, moving on. Now, we also need to hold the industry to account. Konami, Capcom, EA, and others. They have seemingly embarked on a series of horrible decisions. But from Konami and Kojima to Capcom's personalized censorship to EA's horrible decisions with Battlefront. And, of course, we can't forget the ideas that have, permeated the industry in terms of single player versus multiplayer. It seemingly has become a matter where they somehow believe that single player and multiplayer are somehow unequal, that multiplayer is the big thing, yet Fallout 4 proves that to be a falsehood by outselling everything in its path. That's what I'm talking about. Gamers have to hold the industry account because the gaming industry doesn't understand or even respect our views or opinions. And I think a big problem with it is they become so locked in their ways they cannot change. They've made bad choice after bad choice, not just Capcom, not just Konami, but the industry as a whole. Now, we used to treat the industry as if they were friends, as if they were an ally in this argument. And perhaps once that was true. That's not the case anymore. Always remember that the industry is a business. And we should be the ones that it bows to, not the other way around. And if we want that to change, we need to hold them to account. We refuse to buy games that are incomplete, inferior, or ineffective. We refuse to buy games that are not true to the content they should have, that eschew a single-player campaign, and then don't provide enough multiplayer content to make up the difference. Battlefront. Then we also need to make it hurt where it hurts the most, and that's the pocketbook. Steam refunds is one of the first real good moves in that direction. We need to hold others to account as well. Console, PC, doesn't matter. If you don't have a refund policy, we need to make them offer one. Be it retail or digital, we have to fight them on this. Now, the gaming industry is in a weird place right now as it struggles to find its identity. It needs to decide whether it's going to continue to be a single player and multiplayer, product where it packages them together, or if it starts doing something a little bit more intelligent, like separating them into separate products that you can buy individually to suit your taste. Right now, gaming is packing a single player campaign into a multiplayer game, and the single player winds up short shrifted. Other cases, like with From Software, they make the multiplayer a small part of the game, but allow you to play it at your own discretion. So it works. What we need is to start forcing a trend where if you're going to make a single player and multiplayer game, then you need to make sure that those are, that they are worthy of the cost you're putting onto them. That the single player and the multiplayer have as much content as one or the other. And I understand that multiplayer eventually always outclasses single player because it grows as time goes on. That's fine. But when your single player campaign can't even touch 4 hours, you're losing out, and so is the people who play it. Because it means that when they find out how bad the campaign is, they might not think the multiplayer is worth it and might just return the game because it's not worth their time. It is time that we, as gamers, start telling game companies, look, this is not working anymore. You need to change your methods, or you need to start treating us with more respect, because we aren't going to tolerate this garbage anymore. It's up to us, because the game industry won't change unless we force them to. Now, moving on to the final topic, and I'm going to try and blow through this one fairly quick, because this is getting long already, but here's the deal. This is the topic about games and controversy. And let's just start out right away. Last year, Gamergate hit like a nuclear bomb in the gaming industry. The problem was, Gamergate as it was never properly represented by the media, nor was it ever properly represented by pretty much anyone. Now, a year later, you're seeing a turning in which many of the Gamergate, related stuff is still going. Many of the people who are against Gamergate are slowly dying out. But that doesn't change the fact that we really, really need to let, the gaming industry know where we stand on these things. First of all, as I mentioned earlier, we cannot tolerate censorship. And the problem is that's what we're dealing with right now. We're dealing with censorship, and it's getting worse. And it's not because it's being censored by the government, it's being censored by the gaming industry itself out of some silly fear of SJW backlash, of feminist backlash. And at the end of the day, that's not going to work for the industry. That's only going to hurt the industry in the long run. And I understand there's a concern, there's a fear, but we have to say, no, this is not something we're going to accept. We have to be willing to stand as a community together and say, look, these people do not represent us. They do not speak for us. They don't buy your games. They don't play your games. They don't like your games. They don't want anything to do with them. They yell and scream and whine, but they're the ones at the end of the day who won't give you any money to buy your game, no matter what you do, because that's not what they're arguing for. They're there because they want to simply have a shouting post to yell and scream at the world for their imagined slights. That is the harsh truth of the situation. The irony is this. Many gamers, especially the ones I talk to online and around town, all agree that we'd actually like to see more female characters in games, and particularly we'd like to see more female leads. So why in the hell are you suddenly yelling and screaming about changing existing content rather than asking for new games to be made with female leads? And the answer is that it's not about having gaming expand or be better. It's all about these people wanting to force gaming to kowtow to them for the express purpose of, their own notoriety, for their own fame. And I say, screw them. Gaming needs to stand for what it is. It needs to be for the people who actually care about it, who actually play it. At the end of the day, we're the ones that support the industry, not Anita Sarkeesian or Macintosh or Harper or any of these other SJW douchebags. We are the ones that gaming survives on, that it grows with. We're the ones who introduce young friends and brothers and sisters to gaming and help them grow into it. We're the ones who share it with our family and friends. And now these jerks, these scumbags, these assholes, pardon the language, are trying to infect gaming with their own stupid political ideology when no one wants or asked for it. And that's why Gamergate is important, because even a year later, it still stands for those ideals. At the end of the day, gaming is about the gamers. It's about the people who play. And if we're going to let these arrogant jackasses get involved in our pastime, then we need to stand up to them and tell them, you either get on board or get out of the way. They claim they want to make games change. What they really do is want to make games die. They want games to stop being what they are so that they can use them as political tools and puppetry. And that is something we should never accept. So there's the question. Are we going to stand for gaming, or are we going to let these idiots infect and destroy the hobby that we have all come to love? I will always tell them to go jump in a lake or, go throw themselves against the brick wall of political correctness, because as far as I'm concerned, they are garbage. They do not belong here. They do not respect gaming, and they don't deserve to be part of it. If they can, make their proclamations that gamers are sexist and racist and all this other crap, then we can call them out for being bigots, censors, and political garbage. That's what they are. They make unfounded accusations with no basis in proof, and then act as if we should take it at face value. Well, you know what? No, I won't. It's time for us to say no to censorship. Not let Capcom, not let Konami, not let any developer censor their games because these shrieking harpies are attempting to change the industry to suit their pathetic little worldview. And I'm sorry if that offended them, but you know what? Guess what? I don't care. I really don't. At the end of the day, this is our hobby. Not theirs, not anyone else's. And no one's going to defend it if we don't. It's time for us to make a choice and take a stand and say, we want gaming to be gaming. We do not want it to fall prey to the same political garbage that has infected Hollywood for so many years and has ruined television. I don't know about you all, but up until recently, movies and television kind of sucked ass. So let's stand together as gamers and say, no, we want none of your garbage. You will either vacate from our world or you will be fought at every turn. If you don't agree, that's fine, but then don't hang around here because we don't want you. If you love gaming and want to see it continue to be the successful, wonderful hobby it is, then stand up to these people. Anyway, this is the Mega Mac Hat, and that was my view on the year in gaming. Hopefully, it was somewhat entertaining and at least informative. If you have anything else, or if you have any suggestions for other videos I should do, feel free to leave me a comment. I'm not going to ask you to like, favorite, or subscribe, because you're going to do that if you want to anyway. What I will say is, hope to see you guys next year with some more video content if I have time. Until then, I will probably be working on a little review of EDF 4.1 for the PlayStation 4 as soon as I get some more video footage of it. Either way, I will catch up with you all later. This is the Mega Mac Cat signing out.